This is Matt for Into Boxing. Delighted to be joined by Eddie Hearn. Eddie, it's just got a little bit more serious up there. Pumped up for this fight Saturday. It's going to be an incredible occasion. How excited are you for the main event?
Tremendous fight. I mean, tremendous card. But, you know, as Oscar said, I don't always agree with him. He's only a foot away from me, so I have to not be too loud in case he chins me. But ultimately, he's right. You know, we're not seeing the big fights in boxing. It's been a rough few weeks, and I think we should celebrate this fight because I think it's a great fight. And when two guys want the fight, you'll see it happen. You know, and you're seeing that before hours on Saturday night. It's an elite fight for the world light heavyweight title on a great card as well.
Dmitry Bivol's become a real superstar, even how he conducts himself in his media interviews. I mean, it was brilliant to speak to the other day. How impressed were you with how he sort of progressed through the ranks? I mean, I saw him hitting the pads the other day, and the way he turns his left hook in is it's incredible. How impressed were you with this man?
When you realise, and we're on the other end of the conversations over the last, I mean, I can't remember how long we've been working with Bivol, back to the fight in Monaco, 5 years, 6 years, yeah, but that was more recent. But if you look at Dmitry Bivol, it wasn't so long that he was on the undercard fighting Craig Richards behind closed doors. After we boxed him against Joe Smith and he won that fight in America, during COVID, Dmitry Bivol was not at the top of the agenda. And I don't mind saying that. We always made it happen for him. But he had to take short money, he had to take opportunities like the Richards fight. And then they just kept believing in him because Vadim have always said how good Dmitry Bivol is. And I believed it as well. But it's all right. It's one thing being good, but you've got to get the chance. You know, and the chance really came from Canelo Alvarez. You know, it was Canelo Alvarez saying, I want to try and be great. I want to try and be world champion at 175 pounds. And I'm willing to fight Dmitry Bivol. And all of a sudden, Bivol comes in on Cinco de Mayo, beats Canelo Alvarez, puts himself on the pound-for-pound list. Now, all of a sudden, he's filling venues in Abu Dhabi in huge fights. So this is no surprise to us in terms of how good Dmitry Bivol is. But this is just life, where you just have to stay consistent and do the right things. And when the opportunity comes, you've got to take it. And he took it. And now he's a different level, you know, of boxing.
He's took the ball and run with it, but when I speak to him, obviously the big money fight in boxing is Canelo Alvarez, so a rematch would do good numbers for him. He's talking about not even reached my full potential yet, and I want to be undisputed with Beterbiev, Yad, whoever. What does that sort of say about him, that he's not looking just to go back for big money against Canelo straight away? He wants to achieve and create a legacy for himself in the sport.
Dmitry Bivol is definitely about legacy. You know, look, legacy comes from beating the pound-for-pound number one as well. But also, he has a dream to become undisputed in his weight class. I feel like Dmitry Bivol is the best 175-pounder in the world. Beterbiev is a tremendous fighter. He may be coming towards the end of his career, but Bivol against Beterbiev is one of the best fights in boxing. And it's for the undisputed championship. And I said up there, you know, what women's boxing is doing at the moment about crowning all these undisputed champions. We should look to have one champion in every weight class. You know, and that's a way to do it, making Bivol against Beterbiev. But he has to beat Zurdo Ramirez, which is a very tough fight.
Oscar De La Hoya alluded to the fact on Twitter last night and a bit up there about making the big fights possible and the stumbling blocks he's come across with Al Haymon, PBC, etc. How do we sort of bridge that gap, you know, fill that void? Because boxing fans are very critical of the YouTubers, your Jake Pauls, but ultimately, if we're not putting the big fights on, these people are going to feel elevated. How do we bridge that gap? So you get on with Oscar, you managed to put on promotions previously before with Bob Arum, you've worked together. How do we all come together to make these fights so they don't fall through?
Well, firstly, it's got to come down to the fighters and the closest team members wanting the fights, and that's basically the trainer. Right? Sometimes a fighter will want to fight. In fact, 90% of the time, a fighter will want the fight. And sometimes, when you're talking about that level, maybe 50% of the time, the trainer won't. Sometimes the fighter overrules the trainer. Sometimes there's so much money, the trainer goes, not mad on the fight, but let's do it. The other time, you've got people within the team, managers, advisors, lawyers. Some of them know absolutely nothing about the business, right? Who start getting into fighters' heads, think they're worth this, think they're worth that. When you look at Spence Crawford, you know, I feel sorry for Al Haymon, but Al knows the numbers, right? He's a very bright man. He knows the numbers like the back of his hand. And the fact that he's not willing to put up a guarantee, there's a reason for that. He's unsure how big the fight is in reality. And I always get criticism when I say Spence Crawford's not as big as you think it is, right? Sharp, it's massive. Yeah, it is if you sit on Twitter all day and study boxing. But if it was bigger, it would get made. right? The problem is now is that there are people that come into the sport that are looking to invest and make noise, like BLK Prime, like DAZN many years ago, who will overpay a fighter and pay them the incorrect market value for that fighter. And you look at Crawford against Avanesian, great example, right? You know, a great example of one where it's going to do terrible numbers, no one's really interested in the fight, and they're paying reportedly $10 million for that fight. Fortune. But when you're looking to make a statement in the market, sometimes that investment is worth the investment. Just because that fight doesn't deliver that value, you know, so ultimately you have to make an impact. So now Terence Crawford's going, well, I'm getting 10 million to fight Avanesian. Avanesian's a good fighter, but he could fight him 1,000 times, he'd never lose once, right? Or he could make no guarantee against Errol Spence that might be 15, might be 20, but if you're getting 10 to fight Avanesian, surely you should be getting 20, 25. But that's where the market value is distorted, you know, and all these people like Oscar, Al, myself, we know what a fight does. And when you pay a guarantee, you're the one that has to take the punt, right? And I've done it recently in fights where you take the punt on guarantees, right? But when you make that punt, you don't make the punt with your heart, you make the punt with your head, right? So when I'm making the punt for Spence against Crawford and both fighters go, I want a guarantee, you have to choose the pay-per-view threshold number that you are confident it will hit. And that number for me is somewhere between 350 and 400,000 buys. I'm not saying it doesn't do more, I think it does, but I'm not going to pay a guarantee. And when a fight's massive, fighters don't even ask for guarantees. Fury-Joshua is a great example. You're so confident about how big that fight is and the numbers it delivers, don't need a guarantee. But the reason you need a guarantee for Spence Crawford is no one's confident. We know it's a great fight. We know it'll sell out. We know it'll do good numbers. But they think it does 800 to 1 million buys. Well, if you are, you don't need a guarantee because it's going to do 800 to 1 million. But let's be honest, it's not going to, is it? That's why you need the guarantee, right? So, again, very messy, but sometimes you make a fight, sometimes you don't. Let's celebrate a great fight on Saturday and a great fight card.
100% right. We didn't get to ask you this the other day, but you've been having contact with Deontay Wilders' team. First time in a while they've actually responded to you. How conscious are you of talking about this? I know I'm touching on it now, so that it doesn't muddy the water, because we've been here before, haven't we?
There's no bad blood, really. Look, we had the past is the past. Say contact, we've exchanged an email, but that's at least a start. And we want to make that fight in 2023. Now, will it be the first one of the year? Will it be the second one of the year? Will he fight Andy Ruiz? Andy Ruiz is coming on Saturday night. I think it's a tremendous fight. I think it's one of the biggest fights in boxing. We'd love to make the fight. Again, sometimes I talk too much and upset people, and then they think I'm not making the fight because I don't like him, which is quite pathetic, but that's just the world we live in. There's none of that between ourselves. We would like to make that fight if we can. Obviously, our partners here would like to make that fight as well. And it's one of the biggest fights in the sport.
Finally, from me, a few people sent some questions in that they wanted to ask you about fights coming up, etc. So I want to get your opinion. Someone sent in saying, is there testing for Bivol Ramirez for this main event? VADA testing?
Yes, there is.
Are you going to continue to use VADA testing for all the major fights?
Absolutely.
Because you put a lot of money in over there.
Absolutely. We spent millions on VADA testing off our own back. And it's turned around and kicked us in the nuts. But that's life. But absolutely. And, fighters want VADA testing. And Conor Benn wanted VADA testing. And that's also something you have to consider when you're reviewing the whole situation, is previous conversations you've had with people. Because I'll be honest with you, if there was a fighter that was cheating, and I said to them, right, just to let you know, we're implementing VADA testing, and they went, you'd have to... Exactly. So a fighter that is pushing us for VADA testing is always a good sign, and literally the majority do, and Conor Benn was one of them.
Someone else put, when are we going to get the full Conor Benn story? I know legal things take a while, but do you have a time frame?
He's heard. Yeah, no, I'm not involved in the hearing or that process. It's his own fight. We're here to support him, but you will get those facts when it's heard, not before. It's not how things work. You don't commit a crime or get accused of a crime, and just before you go in for the hearing, go out and do a load of YouTube interviews and go, right, what happened was, oh, by the way, I'm going in for the hearing now. I'm sorry, but I know that fight fans want all the information as quickly as possible, and they feel almost, like it's offensive not to get the information, but it's just quite a serious moment for the young man's career. So, he's going to go through that process now, and it won't be long. You'll get the information, but most importantly, you'll get a result in terms of what is going to happen with Conor Benn's career. That's what I want. I know all the facts, and I'm happy for everyone to have them. In fact, pretty much, I'll be honest with you, like they pretty much have them now anyway. But at the same time, I want to know when he could fight again, and if he's going to be banned, let's get it underway.
Someone else asked, "What's your best dance move?"
Dance move. It's like a little bit of the MJ shuffle.
Go on.
Well, it's just a little bit of like, motherfuckers. Something like that. You like that one, Parsons?
Last one from me: Tyson Fury, Oleksandr Usyk. Where do you sort of see that fight going? How do you pick a winner in that fight?
I think it's I got criticism on that because I said I don't think it's a great fight, like as in would be a great fight, but I think it's a compelling fight.
Yeah.
You've got two very awkward, tricky customers.
Yeah.
Like for a hardcore boxing fan, I think it would be fascinating, but they wouldn't just start knocking lumps out of each other. I'd probably give the edge to Tyson Fury because of his size.
You're backing him in
I
this?
just feel like I've always overlooked him in fights, like Klitschko, Wilder, so I should give him the respect that he deserves, but I do think Usyk is very tough to beat.
Absolutely. Eddie Hearn, thanks for talking to Boxing.